Dear friends, this is Chaplain Clark sharing a brief homily with you today. It's always good to be with you. The story I want to tell you is from the Old Testament, chapters 37 to 45. And I would encourage you to read those chapters because they're the story of Joseph in the Old Testament. He was one of the great characters in the Old Testament book of Genesis. Jacob, his father, had two different wives, and between them they had 12 sons. Joseph was Jacob's favorite, and he gave Joseph a beautiful coat of many colors as a gift, and it angered his brothers. And then Joseph had many dreams, and when he shared those dreams, interpreted them, it was as though he was going to rule over their brothers, and that made them even more angry, and they decided to get rid of Joseph. And they sold him to a caravan of traders who were traveling toward Egypt. And they would tell Jacob, their father, that Joseph had been eaten by a wild animal. Is this the end of the story? No way. God's not finished yet. When Joseph was sold as a slave, his adventures were just beginning. He was taken to Egypt, to the house of a man named Potiphar. There Joseph grew and tried to work hard, but he was deceived by Potiphar's wife, who wanted Joseph for herself. And when Joseph ignored her, she became angry and made up a story that Joseph was trying to take her away from her husband, Potiphar. And Potiphar believed her and had Joseph thrown into prison with no promise to release him. Is that the end of the story? No way. God's not finished yet. When Joseph was in prison, he helped two men from Potiphar's court who were also there. Both had dreams, and Joseph interpreted them and asked them to tell Pharaoh and Potiphar about his ability to interpret dreams, and they did. And when Pharaoh had a dream, one of the men remembered that Joseph interpreted dreams, and upon telling Pharaoh, Joseph told him that the dream was about a famine coming to Egypt. And he brought Joseph into his office as an assistant, where Joseph explained how they needed to start planning. Pharaoh put Joseph in charge of running the country, growing and storing food so that when the famine came, they would be prepared for what would be a terrible time, a long famine, and people would not starve. So Joseph was in charge of growing food and storing food to prepare for the famine. But by this time Joseph was famous, a wise assistant to Potiphar, and greatly respected by all the people. Is this the end of the story? No way. God's still not finished. The famine was so bad and widespread that it reached all around that part of the world and even beyond Egypt, even back to where Joseph and his 11 sons, or Jacob and his 11 sons, and their families lived. They too experienced the famine and hunger, and starvation was rampant. They were hungry, very hungry, and out of desperation, Jacob sent his sons to Egypt, hoping that they would be able to buy food and return to their homeland. And when they arrived in Egypt, Joseph saw them and recognized his brothers, but they did not recognize him, thinking he perhaps was dead after they had sold him to the caravan. But no, Joseph was very much alive. Is this the end of the story? No way. God is not finished yet. This was Joseph's chance. Well, after all that, this would serve them right. He pretended to think they were spies, and he said he would only give them food if they left one brother and brought their youngest brother, Benjamin. They told him that would kill their father, who by this time was very old. But they did bring Benjamin. And Joseph tricked them into leaving their youngest brother and finally tried to stop teasing them, and he revealed to them his own identity. Now they were to bring their father and all the family to Joseph, and he would protect them during this long and difficult famine. Skeletons have a way of popping out of forgotten closets, and just when Joseph's family is feeling most vulnerable, the boy is back. And when they brought Jacob, he announced to them that he forgave them what they had done. The bad thing they had done turned out into good things. Because they had planned and done for bad, God turned into good. And Joseph and his father and his family were reunited and rescued from what had been a terrible situation. what had been done out of jealousy and evil intent, God had used for good. Is this the end of the story? Well, not really, because God is not finished yet. Has it ever happened to you that you or I have done something, maybe even intended to hurt someone, and God turned it into something that changed our lives and the life of another person? I think it might happen all the time, even when we don't always recognize it. In the sending of God's Son, Jesus, into the world, God had turned evil, what happened to Christ, into his own purposes for good. For us, the gift of forgiveness is one of the greatest gifts, where God offers to us forgiveness and a new beginning. Why does God do that? Because God isn't finished with us yet. And the end of the story is yet to come for us, when God will make all things new, because in Jesus we are made a new creation. God wants to finish the story for each of us, forgiving us, making all things new in our lives. Thanks be to God. This is Chaplain Clark.